Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today we're going to be taking a look at another of these puzzles by the constructor ZegreS, where he has moulded or melded an absolutely classic riddle with a Sudoku puzzle. So you may remember I did one of these 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was a fantastic light bulb problem that involves some mathematics. Now this one seems to be more like a logic puzzle. I've just been reading the instructions, and in fact, look, I made a slide which sort of illustrates the puzzle we're going to have to deal with. But basically, yeah, this puzzle is called Lady or the Tiger, and Mark tested this for me. And Mark actually knows this riddle. He says it originated in a book by somebody called Raymond Smullyan, I think, from the 1980s. And it was a very popular logic problem book at the time. And it has this puzzle in it, apparently. Mark has the book. He's going to lend it to me, so I'm actually going to get to read it, which I'm quite looking forward to. But what I admire so much about these puzzles by ZegreS is that basically this puzzle involves something to do with 3 doors, and you can see that ZegreS has put the numbers 1, 2 and 3 above 3 shapes that look very much like doors in the puzzle. So he's used sort of Kropki dots to create hinges, and odd grey circles to indicate odd numbers to look like the sort of doorknobs. And, you know, visually it's very arresting. It's really, really clever. And no doubt it'll have a lovely solve path as well. Now, the backstory to this is that there's a lovably eccentric king who's doing strange things with tigers and ladies who are the life and soul of the party. So why don't we try and do the riddle before we even think about the Sudoku? And that way we'll probably know what's what. Now, if you're new to the channel and you've never done or never watched a Cracking the Cryptic video before, you can play all these puzzles yourself. Just click the link under the video description and it'll take you to a page that looks identical to this one, where you'll find the instructions on the right hand side, and you can play the puzzle on whichever device takes your fancy. But now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I'm going to put this up because firstly we've got to do the riddle. So here we go. A lovably eccentric king has put before you a test. Choose one of the 3 doors and encounter either a lady who is the life and soul of the party or a tiger struggling with intermittent fasting. I'm guessing we don't want the tiger. Behind 2 doors is a tiger and no lady, and behind 1 door is a lady and no tiger. Signs hang above each door, so you can see I've put the signs above. So above door 1 there is a sign that says a tiger is in room 2. Above room 2 there's a sign that says a tiger is in this room, and above room 3 there is a sign that says a tiger is in room 1. Oh yeah, I thought I'd misspelled tiger as Tigger then. That was weird, but I haven't. It says the right words. Anyway, so that's what we've got to do. Now the king tells us, hang on, let me just move these instructions down and restore the puzzle. The king tells us that the sign on the room with the lady is true, and at least one of the other signs is false. We're now given the task of answering the riddle, solving the Sudoku, which we'll have to do after we've done the riddle, and not getting eaten. Well, I have no intention of getting eaten, and I do quite like solving riddles and Sudokus. So let's think about how we would do this puzzle. And the way we're going to do it is, so the lady is definitely behind one of these doors, and whichever door she is behind, the sign on the room with the lady is true, and at least one of the other signs is false. So I can immediately actually see that the lady cannot be behind the room 2 door, because if the lady was here, I would try and draw lady. I'm very, very bad at drawing. If the lady was here, I don't know why I did this. This was madness. This isn't my lady. If the lady is here, then this sign is true. But this sign is saying that there's a tiger in this room, which is clearly wrong. So there is no lady here. This is not where the lady lives. So let's get rid of the lady. The lady is not there. Now you can see I'm doing this in whatever it's called, snipping tool, which is not the most sophisticated software. You'll have to excuse me. So let's imagine the lady's in room 1 then. If the lady's in room 1, I'm not going to redraw the lady. Let's just say the lady is here. Then this would be saying that that there is a tiger in room 2. Well, that would be true, because if the lady's here, we know that both other rooms have tigers in them. So this is therefore true. So the lady's here, and that statement is true. That's another tick. Now we need one of these two now to be false. This one is saying a tiger is in this room. Well, that's the same thing as that one was saying, so that's also true. So we need this one to be false. A tiger is in room 1. Well, there's a lady in room 1. There is no tiger, so that one is false. And rather worryingly, that seems to indicate that that's probably correct then, and that the lady is in room 1. But to absolutely prove that, and prove that there aren't two solutions to the riddle, we need to also show that the lady is not in room 3. So let's imagine we're now thinking about whether the lady is in room 3. We'll tick this one. Then, is it true to say that there is a tiger in room 1? Yes, it is. There would be a tiger in room 1. So that's true. We need one of these to be false for this to be an alternative solution. So room 2 is saying there's a tiger in this room. That's also true. And room 1 is saying... that's right. This is interesting. Room 1 is saying there's a tiger in room 2, which is also true. So if the lady is in room 3, all 3 statements are true. And that's not correct, because the king is telling us, I'm assuming the king always tells the truth, the king is telling us that there must be at least one false sign if the lady is behind, well, there is at least one false sign, and there wouldn't be if the lady was behind door 3. So the lady is behind door 1. This is the winner. Tick. And now let's see what this means in terms of the Sudoku. So now we know that room 1, this room, has the lady. So now I think what we get to do is to use some digits as a result of that, because the lady is represented by the digit 1 and the tigers are represented by digit 9s. So behind 2 doors there are tigers. Well, we know the tigers are in these cages now, I think. Yes, behind 2 doors in the cage is a tiger, which is a bracket 9 digit, and no lady. So the tigers are in there, so these have 9s and no 1s in them. So the 1s in boxes 8 and 9 must be outside of the door cages. Behind 1 door in the cage is a lady, so the lady is here, the lady is the 1, and no tiger, so the 9 is over there. And then we've done the riddle part, so now we just have to read the Sudoku rules. So what do we have to do? Normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage, so these cages all sum up to 30. What else? Digits along an arrow sum to the digit in that arrow circle, so those 4 cells there sum up to 9. In fact, everything is 9. A lot of 9s, and very strangely we're given all the totals, which is incredibly unusual. Cells with a grey circle must contain an odd digit, so those 3 digits there are odd. Cells separated by a white dot must contain consecutive digits, so that domino there has consecutive digits in it. So if this was a 6, this square would have to be a 5 or a 7, and that's how white dots work in general. Cells separated by a black dot contain digits with a ratio of 1 to 2, and not all possible dots are given. So let's just talk about that. Let's look at this black domino here. Let's imagine this cell was a 4. If this is a 4, this square has to be in a ratio of 1 to 2 with 4, so it's either a 2 or it's an 8. So we always have to make sure that one of the digits in the domino is double the other one. That's the easiest way to think about black dots. And not all dots are given. is saying that it would be absolutely fine for this square to be an 8, for example. Just because there's no white dot between these two cells doesn't mean they can't be consecutive. It's just that we know for certain those two, those two, those two, those two, and those two are consecutive. So, do have a go at this bit of the puzzle as well. Now I get to play this one as well. 2 Let's Get Crackings in one video. That's going to confuse the bot that always gives the timestamps for what I say. Anyway, let's get cracking again and see how we do this bit. So, I mean, I can see something straight away here, using the secret, of course. Now, if you're new to the channel, you may not know the secret. I only tell the secret to my favourite people. And the secret is that if you look at any complete box of a Sudoku, and you correctly complete that box, it will contain the digits 1 to 9 once each. Now, if you add up the digits 1 to 9, you get 45. So let's look at this box. This box sums to 45, but we know that these 6 digits sum up to 30. So those 3 cells there sum up to 45 minus 30, which is 15. And this is where ZegreS, this is the sort of thing ZegreS is doing in these elegant puzzles. Because if these add up to 15, but one of the digits is a 1, and the other, we cannot include 9 in this string of 3 cells, then how do we make these 3 digits add up to 15? Well, there's only one way. They have to be 1, 6, and 8. And the same is true for exactly the same reasons there. That has to be a 1, 6, 8 triple. And in this box, in this box we have similar logic. Look, these 3 digits sum up to 15. One of them is a 9 for sure, and the other 2 digits cannot include a 1. So the only way that works is with 2, 4, and 9. And well, this is right. And now we can immediately write the 9 into this string, because you can never put a 9 on a black Kropki dot, because what would you put into the cell next to it if you do try and do this with a 9? This square here would either have to be 18, because one of this needs to be double the other, or it would have to be 4.5. Neither 18 nor 4.5 can go into a cell of the Sudoku, not even this Sudoku. So we can immediately rule 9 out of those. We can place 9 here. We can get rid of 9s from those cells. And we can pause for breath and wonder what to do next. Well, we've got 2s and 4s connecting to digits on black dots here. So that's not actually very useful, to be honest. Because if this was a 2, this could be a 1 or a 4. And if this was a 4, this could be a 2 or an 8. So there is a whole plethora of options for these 2 squares. But I suppose because that's a 2-4 pair, we can immediately get rid of the 2 and the 4 option. So we get left with 1 and 8 into those positions. Don't think we can do anything with the odd cell there. Oh, we can play. Oh, no, we can't. I was suddenly thinking I could do Sudoku with 1. I know that's not a 1. So we can tidy things up a little bit. I suppose the other thing... Oh, look. Yes, here's something else. This digit definitely cannot be a 1, because it has a dot on either side of it. So what digit is consecutive with 1 that we can put in a Sudoku? Nope, it's not that one. It would have to be a 2. But what digit is in a 1 to 2 ratio with a 1? Well, the problem is it's the same digit. So you'd end up with 2 2s in row 7, and that won't work. So what we've got to do here is say that that is not a 1, and similar logic there, that is not a 1. I've now got a 6-8 pair, which tells me this is a 1, this is an 8. We can remove 8s from those cells. Now, we've got a black dot relationship with a 1 or a 6, so that's either a 2 or a 3. It's definitely not a 9. That's exactly the same. There's a lot of sort of symmetrical logic going on between cells in the puzzle. I've now got a 2-3 pair here, so that's become a 4. That's a 2. And probably we might be able to do something further. Yeah, we can get a 3-4 pair into those 2 squares. Because what digit could accompany a 6 on a black dot? Well, it'll have to be 3, because we can't put 12 into this square. What digit accompanies an 8? Well, it'll have to be 4 because we can't put 16 in there. The same logic applies there. Remove the 9s as options from these two squares. And what do we have left to place 5s, 7s and 9s into those three squares? Now, a little trick with white dots is that they always alternate parity. So whenever you know that, once we know these digits are odd, we know these digits are even. And none of them can be a 2, because obviously 2 is not consecutive with 5, 7 or 9. So those three squares are in fact a 4, 6, 8 triple. And that might be helpful. Let me just have a think about that. How can we use that knowledge to our advantage? We can say that, well, that one's not a 9, I've just noticed by Sudoku. So that, oh no, that one still can be an 8, because it could be an 8 then a 7. Oh dear. I think we're about to get stuck. Oh well, it was a good start. We were doing quite well for a while. Oh, no, 3. Yeah, Sudoku. Sudoku, it's funny how often Sudoku in a Sudoku puzzle can be your friend, but it's amazing how often I miss that fact. Look, we've got 3 and 6 in these 4 cells in row 9. So where are we putting 3 and 6 in this box? Well, they can only go in those two squares, and this one has to be an odd number. So that's a 3 and that's a 6. Which means those squares, it doesn't resolve them, but they're now a 1-8 pair. This square is a 5 or a 7. And that's very, very useful because, why? Can this be a 9 as well? I don't think there's as much restriction on 9s in these two positions, or indeed these two positions. But that's probably famous last words. Okay, let's think about something else then. We could, these squares have got to be 5, 7 or 9 by Sudoku. This square, it only has the option of being 5 or 7, because it sees 3 and 9 in its row, and it sees 1 in its box, and it must be odd. So that's a 5, 7, 9 triple now, which means that square is 2, 3 or 4, and it's not 3 by Sudoku. So we've got a 2, 3, 4 triple here. Now that's immediately ringing, well, getting my spider senses going regarding arrows, because if these squares here can't be 2s, 3s or 4s, one of them has to be quite a high digit on an arrow. So we'll have a look at that in a second. Let me just see if I can do anything better over there. Oh, yeah, symmetry again. This square is also a 5 or a 7, of course, because it's subject to exactly the same conditions as this one. It sees 1 in its box and 3, 9 in its row. So that's another 5, 7, 9 triple, which means this is another 2, 3, 4 triple. But that's going to be yet less useful, I think. Probably famous last words. 2 has to be in one of those cells by Sudoku. 1 has to be in one of these squares. And we shall, what shall we do? Let's look at the arrows then. This arrow is probably the most restricted, being it's the longest arrow, 4-cell arrow. Yes. Now, have a look at this digit here. This digit can't be a 1 and it can't be a 2, so it's at least a 3. But this digit, if it's not a 1, has to be at least a 5, and it can't be a 5, because 3 plus 5 is 8, and I can't make these two squares low enough to make the overall total 9. So this square here must be a 1, but obviously it can't be 2, 3 or 4. And if that's a 1, that's not a 1. Oh, and if this is a 1, that's a 1 by Sudoku. Now that digit can't be that low, look. So the minimum value of this digit is now 3. So if we add the minimum values of these 3 cells along this arrow, we are already at 7 before we reach this digit, which also can't be a 1. Because of this is beautiful. So this square now has to be a 2, because it's the only way you can keep this arrow down to its required value. Whoopsie, I didn't mean to do that. I want to put a 3 in there, a 3 in there. I've just realised this arrow is now forced. That's got to be an 8 in order to just, by maths, 1 plus something equals 9. Well, we can do that. Now we've just got this arrow to do. And then we've got to think that's not an 8, I've just noticed, by Sudoku. That does remove 9 from this cell. Beautiful. Once 9 is removed from this square, I've got a 4, 5, 7 pair in row 7. That becomes a 9, which means that must be an 8. It's the only digit that's consecutive with 9. That's no longer an 8. That's no longer a 9. So by Sudoku, this is the 9 in box 8 now. This square at the top of the column must be a 4 or a 6, partnering this cell. Don't know if we know the order. The other thing I'm now, well, slightly concerned about is how I ever disambiguate the bottom 3 rows of the grid. Because we've already sort of done row logic on these 3 rows. So the only thing I think that's going to do it is these 2 cells. We need to resolve these 2 cells somehow. And that will then have an impact on these cells, which hopefully will sort of flutter through the bottom of the grid and resolve all of the Kropki dots at the bottom. So we have to be on the lookout for how we get these 2 cells sorted, which could even be done by getting this cell. Now, let's look at this arrow then. This square here is high. It's very high because it can't be 1, 2, 3 or 4, so it's at least 5. This square here can't... Oh, I see. This is gorgeous, right. This square here can't be 1. This square here can't be 1. So the minimum values for every cell on this arrow are 2, 2 and 5. And 2, 2 and 5 add up to 9. So we can't move away from those minimum values. All of those get filled in. Which hasn't done my 4 or 6, has it? But perhaps we can... Well, what should we do now then? Perhaps we've got to do Sudoku of all things again. Yes, we can. That's a 1, I've just noticed. There's a 1 up here, mirroring the 1 we've got in box 1. 5 has to be in this domino. 6. 6 is almost interesting in this box, look. 6 has to be in that domino, which is sort of looks like it might be relevant. 3 has to be in this domino. What about in this column? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, so I need 6s, 7s and 8s into those squares. Yeah, okay, where does 8 go in this column? It's not here by Sudoku, it's not there by Sudoku, it's exactly there. Oh, that's rather beautiful. This is, again, it's not difficult logic, but in this puzzle, it's just beautiful. Look, 6 now in this box has to be in that domino, which means that square gets resolved, that square gets resolved, and this is what we've been looking for, because now, oh no, that one doesn't. Yeah, but this one does. That could still be 5 or 7, but this being a 4 forces that one to be a 5, which does force a few things, look. Yes. This has to be consecutive with 5, so that's 6, that's 8, that's 4, that's 3, that's 2, that's 4, that's 2, that's 3. And hopefully now, what does this? This is 3, so that must be 6, which makes this 1, and that 8. And the whole of the bottom gets filled in. And that was a very, very nice bit of logic. So we just need 6. Oh, 6. Where does 6 go in this column? It's got to go at the top. So that square's a 7. This is a 5, 7 pair. This is something. 4 and 9, is it? Oh, yes, and that's a 4 therefore. So that's a 9. And now maybe this row perhaps 2, 3 and 5. So this is a 3 or a 5. That's a 2, 3 or 5. And that's a 2 or a 5. No, that row was singularly useless and let itself down. Okay, so we're going to have to do something else. Where should we look now? What other bits of Sudoku can we look for? 8 is in one of those 2 squares. 8 can be placed in box 3. doesn't quite place it in box 1, but it does at least give us another digit. We need 1, 2, 4 and 6. Ooh, naked single in the top right of the grid, look. 2, 4 and 6 are seen in the row. That's got to be a 1. That places the 1 over in box 1 as well. So these square now 2 in the column is a naked single. It can only go here. This is a 4, 6 pair, which doesn't look like it's resolved. And these squares are 3, 5 and 7, which also look like they're being a little bit recalcitrant. That's not 3 though. Oh, I see. Yeah, we can get the 3. And we now have a 5, 7 pair in this row, which means this square is a 4 or a 6, and it's not a 6. So that's 4, and that's 6. And that makes a little bit more progress. Tempted to look at column 8, where we need 5, 6 and 7. That's 6 or 7. That's 5, 6 or 7. Whoops. Yeah, that wasn't where we were meant to look next. That's not been a very profitable choice. What about this row then, where we need 5, 6 and 7? Yes, that's a naked single. That's got to be 6. And this 6 means that one of those two is a 6, but we don't know which one. This column, though, that must now be done, isn't it? 8 and 9. Yes, this 9 is important. So that becomes a 9. That becomes an 8. That 9 took the pencil mark position of an 8. So the 8 goes in here. That forces the 6. That forces the 6 in column 8. And hopefully now we must be on the finishing straight. We need 4 and 7. So that's a 4. That's a 7. This 2 is nice. That's forcing all of these cells to get resolved. 7s and 5s go in. We need 3 and something up here. 3 and 5. So that's a 7. 3 and 5. We could do this by uniqueness, but we won't. That square's a 9. And that square there is a something. 5, I think. 5 and 3. That should be a 3. That should be a 2. And we have solved the riddle and the Sudoku. Just beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous. The lady or the tiger, and we managed to find a lady who's the life and soul and not get eaten. What more could you ask for on a Sunday evening? Let me know in the comments whether you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments whether you enjoy this sort of Sudoku. And let me know who your ideal party guest would be. I will enjoy reading about those. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.